Hey everybody. So I am so incredibly bored that I'm going to make a video about how to make your Windows 10 computer feel a little bit faster. It won't actually be faster, but it should feel faster. And that's because of settings changes that you can make so that it will consume more power, but then it'll be more powerful as well. And then also to get rid of some of like the fancy graphics tricks that Windows does to make it look really nice, but which you don't really necessarily need, especially on older PCs that are already running slowly. So let's get into it. One other thing to mention is for desktops, this shouldn't be any problem at all. It might consume a little more power, but you're talking a few cents a year in terms of your power bill. For laptops though, because it consumes more power, it will drain your battery faster. And so if you're using a laptop, you can still set everything to high performance if you're on battery, but if you're plugged in, but you might want to turn it back to the battery saver sort of power features when you're not plugged in to get better battery life. But for that matter, you can turn it to high performance and then check and see how long it lasts. And depending on what you're doing, it might be totally fine. Also, usually your screen takes a ton of battery, so turning your screen down, that'll save a lot of battery life just in and of itself. And so if you can turn the brightness of your screen down, you might be able to keep some of these power features on and still get better performance. One other thing to note is whether it's desktop or laptop, after you turn these things on, it's going to produce more heat, which is normally fine. But if you got a computer that's really dirty, that's got a lot of dust and hair and stuff in it, you might hear the fan whirring up more, and it's going to run hotter. So that's why you should always make sure to clean out your computers, whether it's desktop or laptop, pretty regularly. All right, anyways, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is check the power settings. So you can open up the settings, which I've got a shortcut here. You can open up the settings and go to System. Again, this is Windows 10, so Windows 7 will be a little bit different. With Mac, they don't let you tweak stuff like this very easily in Mac. You have to get apps for it. And in Linux, you can tweak everything, but and there's one or two good programs for it, but we're not even going to touch on that. With Windows, though, it's fairly easy. So go to System, and then come down here to Power and Sleep. And now you've got the screen and sleep features, but if you click additional power settings, then it'll give you this. So normally when you start out, this will be on balanced with a brand new Windows 10 install. It might be on power saver if it's a laptop, and also this show additional plans will probably be closed. So if it's on balanced or power saver, and if you don't see the high performance one, you can click this down arrow and see if it's here. If you still don't see high performance, then you can create your own power plan by doing Create Power Plan. And then you can start with one of these and give it a custom name. On desktops, high performance will usually show up. On some laptops, it won't. So with laptops, you may need to create a custom plan. But at any rate, after you've selected high performance, you'll still want to do Change Plan Settings. This is the display and sleep again, which actually we can close this. This is your display and sleep settings again, but you can go into Change Advanced Power Settings. And we're going to go down these kind of quickly here. So for hard disk, turn off hard disk after. You can actually type in never. And if you change it to never, what that does is if your hard disk never turns off, then there's no delay when it turns back on. And so that'll make it seem a little bit quicker. If you step away for a few minutes and come back to your device and start using it again, there will be less of a delay. Internet Explorer, I'm leaving alone because I don't use it, and you shouldn't either. You should use Chrome. Desktop background settings, you can make a slideshow available. Again, that's just sort of a look and feel sort of thing. Wireless adapter settings, you can change this to maximum performance. Again, if it's a laptop and you want it in one of the power saving modes, you may choose to do that, but maximum performance will give you the best performance, of course. For sleep, these are like timers and things like that. So I don't normally let this go to sleep because it's a desktop and it's plugged in. I would turn off hybrid sleep. I would turn off hibernation as well. Hibernation will create like a copy of your memory on your hard disk. And basically you've got device on, and then you've got sleep, which is still pretty much on, but some stuff has sort of gone into a sleep mode, you know? And then you've got hibernate, which is one lower than that, where it actually saves your stuff from memory to the hard disk, and when you open it back up, it then copies it from hard disk back into memory. And what that allows it to do is open up a little bit more quickly. And then of course you've got off. I don't use hibernate for a couple of reasons, but again, this is a desktop. So for a laptop, if you find yourself often closing your laptop and throwing it in your bag but leaving it powered on, you might want to use hibernate. For USB settings, if you disable selective suspend, what this does is it will take certain USB devices, and if you're not using them, it will turn them off to save power. But then when you go to use them again, whether it's a mouse or keyboard or whatever, it'll take a second for them to work. And so I just disable this because it doesn't use much power. This is your power button stuff. You can choose what they do. PCI Express link state power management, I have that turned off. And again, this, if you're not using one of the PCI Express devices, like an extra graphics card or a Wi-Fi card or something, you can get some power savings by turning off the power to it when you're not using it. I turn this power management off because I may use Wi-Fi or graphics or whatever at any given time, and I just don't want any possible slowdown. For processor management, this is an important one. If you want high performance, set the minimum to 100. System cooling policy should be active no matter what, and maximum will be 100 as well. That's going to give you basically the most performance that you can get. And if you hold Control, Shift, and Escape, click Control, Shift, Escape, then you'll see the Task Manager, which normally it looks like this. This is the simplified version. You can do more details and performance, and then you can see how your individual CPU cores are going. Actually, the default is like this. It aggregates and gives an average of all of your CPU cores, but if you right-click, change graph to logical processors, then it shows the individual processors. So like I have two CPUs in here that have 12 cores each and 24 threads, so it shows as 24 logical processors. And then I've got 48 gigs of memory. You can see how that's doing. This is just how your disks are doing with transfer rates. Ethernet, these are some other Ethernet things. And then GPU, which I'm using the GPU a little bit right now, just to show this stuff and to record, but mostly I'm using CPU. And even then you can see it's only at 9%. This utilization will stay the same depending on if you're using the same programs that you would have been. That'll stay the same, but what will change by changing these things is this speed. The speed will go up, the amount of power the processor gets will go up, and that's how changing this to 100 can affect this here. So actually, like you see, mine has a base speed of only 2.8 gigahertz, but it's running at 3 gigahertz most of the time, even a little bit higher sometimes. It's boosting, which it can do because it's staying cool enough and I'm giving it more power. So changing this processor power management gives you more power, gives you more performance. Display, this is just the turn off setting again. And then for multimedia, I wouldn't change anything. Basically what this is, if you're sharing or playing a video, it will keep things active. Obviously you wouldn't want to be playing a movie and have your screen shut off after 10 minutes because that's just annoying. So this gets around that setting. So when you're done, you can do apply and then OK. And then there you go. That's basically it. There is one other thing here. Let me see if I can find it. No, I think it's here. I don't know why this is, but if you go to choose what the power buttons do, you've got these optional settings, and they're going to be grayed out though. So if you do change settings that are currently unavailable, you can turn on fast startup. And I think this is probably going to be on in most cases. I've turned it off because it causes issues when you have more than one operating system on a computer, but You almost definitely don't have that. If you turn this on, it does exactly that. It makes your startups faster, and it really works. And you should do this. It basically makes a quick image of some of the stuff that it needs and saves it so that it can easily access it next time you turn on your computer. I can't use it because when I have another operating system that opens up, it will block it in terms of the disk, and it's a very specialized case, and again, you don't need to worry about that. You should turn this on unless you know what you're doing and know otherwise. So anyways, that's everything from choosing a customized power plan. Now there's still another thing that you can do. If you go to My PC, and you can find it here as well, right click that and do Properties, or you can right click the icon here and do Properties. This just gives some info about your PC. You can go to Advanced System Settings and then click on the Performance Settings button here. And now there's a couple things to look for. So the first is in Advanced here, you've got this virtual memory setting, which you can click Change. Now I've already turned mine off, but if I turn this back on, you'll see an initial size and a maximum size. No, I'm sorry, it'll say System Managed Size if you turn this on. And it gives a recommendation. Now the recommendation is based on how much RAM you have. And what this paging file does is it will allocate part of your hard drive to sort of act like RAM. It's called a page file or a swap file. And it will send data there and then it will retrieve it. The problem with this system is that hard drives are notoriously slow. And so when it goes to retrieve that data, like if you're opening up a program that maybe you haven't opened up in a little while, it opens it up more slowly. So there's two things you can do here. If you set the custom size to, say, if you've got 4 gigabytes of memory, I would still choose a custom size, and this should be 4096. If you've got 8 gigabytes of memory, you can do custom size and do 4096 as well. If you have more than 8 gigabytes of memory though, I would do no paging file. And you want to do custom size, and you set the initial and the maximum to either, again, 4096, or you could do 8192, 4 gigs of hard drive space, or 8. Set the initial size and the maximum size to the same value, and after you've done this, click Set. Now again, that's if you have 4 or 8 gigabytes of memory, which you can see right here, installed memory RAM. If you have more than 16, then just turn it off. Just do no paging file. So again, because hard drives are slow, if you have more than 16 gigs of memory, you don't want it swapping to the hard drive, and you probably don't need it. So this will make that faster. The reason to use custom size if you only have 4 or 8 gigabytes is because you see this minimum and recommended and currently allocated. You'll see this currently allocated value change if you let Windows automatically manage it. Like if this is checked by default, it is. And that change in size, that takes a second or two for the computer to do. If you create one size, so by having both of these values be the same, so it's one static size, it goes a little bit quicker. It speeds up your paging file slightly. But again, that's only if you've got less than 16 gigs of memory. If you've got 16 gigs or more, just do no paging file, because you're probably not going to need it. Whichever one you do, after you're done, click Set and then OK. And then we're going to come back here to Visual Effects. Now, the default is let Windows choose what's best for my computer. And normally that's okay. But you can turn a bunch of this stuff off. And what you can do is turn one of them off and then see what it does, and then turn it back on if you don't like it. So things like, I'll tell you what you can probably get rid of. So, or I'll show you rather. I would uncheck these. You don't need any of these fade ones at all. Shadows under the mouse pointer you can uncheck. Shadows under Windows. I would leave this one checked. And normally I would leave this one checked as well. So you see how when you move the window, you see the actual window contents? If you uncheck this one, when you go to move a window, it'll just show an outline of the window moving, and it's really kind of annoying. So even on a slow computer, I'll normally leave this one checked, but it does take quite a bit of resources. So you might want to uncheck this one. Get rid of that. I would leave screen fonts smooth because they'll just look terrible if they're not. I would get rid of this one though. And then this use drop shadows for icon labels. What this does is on the label, the lettering background is transparent normally. If you uncheck this, then it will give it a background color and it really looks terrible and it looks like Windows 95. But if you have a computer that's really super slow, turn all of those things off. They're just visual, but they put more of a strain on your computer hardware, and there's no real benefit to them other than they kind of look nice. When you're done, click apply and OK. I'm not going to do it on this because my computer's plenty quick, but if you've got a slower computer, uncheck most of these. I would leave these ones checked, and you might want to leave that one checked as well. I've actually done this on my laptop, my other laptop. I've done this on a bunch of devices, and yeah, you'll see it's not quite as nice looking. It's not quite, you know, you don't see shadows and stuff like that, so it's just not as pretty, I guess. But it's going to run faster and work better because now, instead of putting resources towards doing silly animations and stuff, it can take those resources and allocate them to the program you're trying to use, you know, PowerPoint or Chrome or whatever, video editors and stuff. And so that can really help. So yeah, that's it. Those three things basically. So the first, just to recap, is in System, Power, Additional Power Settings, and then you can create a plan here or use the high performance plan. That's the first thing. The second thing is to go into virtual memory and change it to a custom size of either 4096 or use no paging file if you've got more than 16 gigs of RAM. And then the last thing is to turn off the visual effects you don't need. If you do those three things, you're not going to actually get more performance out of your computer. It's got a sort of like a static amount of performance, but you may only be using 80% of it. That other 20% you're not using because you're not giving it enough power, and because it's wasting some of that performance on these animations and stuff. So if you do those three things, it's going to feel a little bit snappier, it's going to run a little bit snappier, and the programs that you actually need to run will run better. All right, that's about it, everybody. Hopefully that's helpful for you. There's lots of other things that you can do, but these are some of the easy ones. Again, this is Windows 10. Windows 7 has really similar things. It's just they're in a slightly different place, and I don't want to get into that because I'd have to install Windows 7 on something. And really, if you're running Windows 7, that computer is almost definitely going to be able to run Windows 10. So you should upgrade. Windows 10 is just better. I know when it first came out it had problems and it sucked. Not now. Windows 10 is much better. Their updates, yeah, they have problems. But if you've got 7, you should install 10. So, yeah, hope that's helpful for some people. You know, stay safe, stay away from other people, stay healthy. See you around.